And with that, we're almost done with the theory. Now there's just one more thing left, and that is related to how we host our different parts. You know from the big picture that we have three big blocks: the React app, the Node Express app, and the MongoDB database and the server that database runs on. Now the question is, where are the different pieces served from? Now we got two main options here. We can have one server, one computer, which hosts both our Node API and the React single page application under the same domain. So mypage.com/nothing might return our single page application. And then under mypage.com/API, we might have the endpoints for that single page application to talk to. The alternative is that we have two separated servers. One very simple server, which simply serves our single React.js application HTML page and all the JavaScript files that application needs, and one server which hosts our API. So if we take a closer look, for the left case that we have one single server, we have a Node Express API which handles incoming requests on that server. For example, under /API, any requests targeting these paths might reach our API. And requests which are not targeting our API routes would return the React single page application in the end. So these requests would get us the single HTML file and the associated JavaScript files that are required to run the React app. Between the React app and the Node API, even though they're running on the same server, we have that separation you learned about. So they don't really know much about each other than that they run on the same server. Data is still exchanged with these AJAX background requests in JSON format. If we have the two separated servers, then we really have two different machines. One which has our Node API on it, our Node Express API, and one which is served from that very simple so-called static host. Static because it will be a server which doesn't need to execute any server-side code, because it is a server that doesn't run any Node or any other programming language application on it. Instead, it's just a server which returns our HTML file and the JavaScript files and the CSS files and so on. So therefore, we got our two ends served on different servers, and data is exchanged in JSON format when we send these background HTTP requests. So that's always the same. In one case, they're just served from the same machine, in the other case, from two machines. In both cases, we got these logically separated apps. Now, regarding the MongoDB database, that always has its own database server, but just like the Node server and the React app, this server could be installed on the same physical machine as our Node and maybe all the React app runs on, or on a separate machine. And often you want to use different machines here to make sure that just because you're getting a lot of requests, you're not slowing down on your database requests or database queries, and the other way around. So therefore, separating the Node Express app and the database server onto two different machines is a good idea. Technically, you could run everything on the same machine. You'll always have the same logical separation though. Now actually, there also is a third way, which I really don't want to talk too much about though. You could have your Node Express server and not build a REST or GraphQL API there, but instead render HTML pages on the fly on that server with templating engines like EJS or Pug. If you took my Node.js The Complete Guide course, you'll learn about this approach as well. Now, you therefore really render different HTML pages for different requests on the server, and that rendered HTML code is returned. Now, to get React into the equation, you could have some parts of these pre-rendered HTML pages which are controlled by React in a widget-like way. So React only controls parts of the page instead of the entire page. This is possible, but it takes away from the great, highly reactive user experience we can build with single-page applications. Since we create and return HTML pages from the server for everything the user does, we constantly reload pages, we add a slight delay, and we don't have that highly reactive mobile app-like feeling we can achieve with single-page applications. Therefore, this is not the approach we will use here. Technically, of course, though, you could build an application with the same technologies, MongoDB, Express, React, and Node, so MERN, with this approach. But you would not get the same great user experience, and therefore typically when we talk about MERN, we talk about the logically separated ends, no matter if they're served by the same physical machine or not. We don't really talk about this approach. Well, and with that all out of the way, let's have a look at a very simple first MERN application so that you can see the big picture also in code, before we then dive into the different course modules where we will get a refresher on React, Node, Express, and MongoDB, and then more importantly, build the different building blocks of our course project, which is such a MERN app, and then also connect these building blocks.